Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey. I'm an ambassador for Olympus UK, and this is the new Olympus 100 to 400mm lens. It's an amazing lens for photographers who shoot all sorts of things. Outdoor sports, wildlife, and not just wildlife that's far off in the distance. This lens has a bit of a party trick, but we'll get to that in a bit. So what do you get in the box? Well, in the box you get the obvious stuff like the lens, a body cap and a lens cap, but also included is a lens hood. There is also a tripod adapter or a tripod collar, but if you don't need the tripod collar or the lens hood, both of them can be removed if you wish. Okay, let's go through the technical bit first. This is a 100 to 400mm lens, but if you're more used to 35mm formats, this is a 200 to 800mm equivalent lens. And it does that wide open at f5 at 100mm and f6.3 at 400mm. So there is a shift of just 2/3 of a stop from one end of the lens to the other. And that's really good for a lens like this. Now, I've done some unscientific testing with this lens over the past few days, and that included weighing it. And on my scales, all in with the lens hood and the tripod collar, it came in at 1.4 kilos. The size of the lens is quite interesting too, so it does vary depending on the focal length you've got. So at its longest, 400mm, it comes in at 34 centimeters. Now, at its smallest, 100mm, it came in at 28 centimeters, and that's from the back of the lens to the front of the lens hood, with the lens hood on the right way round. Now, when it comes to storing it, of course, you're more likely to do what I do and reverse the lens hood like that. Now, in that case, the actual size of the stored lens is around about 21.5 centimeters. Now, one of the questions I always ask about any lens where it changes length as you zoom it is, will it do that under the power of gravity? No, this one's absolutely fine. But of course, this isn't how you use lenses. Lenses get used and, well, shaken a little bit. And no, it's still fine. But if I really shake it, it will start to slip a little bit. Now, Olympus have got you covered on this one because on the side, there's actually a slider that allows you to lock the lens in its 100mm position. Now, that's perfect for storage and carrying. And now, no matter how hard I try, it's not going to slip anymore. And I probably shouldn't do that again because this isn't my lens. Now, this lens isn't part of the Olympus Pro lens lineup, but you'd be forgiven for thinking that it is because it has some really useful features. So a few things give it away. There's no manual focus clutch at the front, but there is an autofocus manual focus slider on the lens. And I think that's possibly a better thing because it works like this for me. I'm not getting any younger and my eyesight not getting any better. I'm relying on the camera's amazing autofocus more and more. So I autofocus on my subject, I move the slider from autofocus to manual focus on the lens, and that keeps my focus locked in at that point. So now every picture, assuming the subject's not moving, is going to be pin sharp, shot after shot after shot. Now, I'm using this with my Olympus OMD EM1 Mark III, which means this is fairly weather resistant. It is in fact both splash proof and dust proof, which if you think about the likely environment you'll be using this lens in, that's a really good thing. Of course, what you really want to know is, how does this lens actually perform? Well, I've had it for a couple of days, I've put it through a few tests, and it's been fantastic. I've never had a lens with this long focal length before. The first thing I noticed is just how fast the autofocus was, and it gets better because on the side there is a focus limiting switch. So you can use the entire focal range, or you can limit it to just infinity to 6 meters or 6 meters to 1.3 meters. Yes, this lens has a minimum focus distance of 1.3 meters, and it'll do that at every focal length. So 400mm, 1.3 meters away, you can photograph tiny insects on flowers without disturbing them. It's amazing. One of the real-world problems of using a lens at this long focal length is, how do you get a stable image in the viewfinder? Well, the Olympus in-body image stabilization really does take care of that, but the lens has its own image stabilization as well. So I wanted to put it to the test. I turned off the in-body image stabilization and the lens stabilization, and then tried to get stable footage handheld at just 300mm. Could I get steady footage? No, it was pretty much unusable. So all I did was switch on the image stabilization for the lens only. There's a switch on the side for that. And instantly it's night and day difference. Now everything is stable. I can frame up my shot. It doesn't wobble around. It's brilliant. Of course, you can also combine the 3 stops of lens stabilization with the in-body image stabilization to get even better results. If you're the sort of photographer for whom 400mm just doesn't really cut it, you need more reach than that, well, you need the Olympus Teleconverters. This lens is compatible with both the MC14 that I've got here, a 1.4 teleconverter, and the MC20, a 2x teleconverter. 2x on 400mm would make it 800mm, which in 35mm equivalent would be a 1600mm lens. Now the 1.4 I've got here would make the 400mm times 1.4, hang on, 400 times 1.4, a 560mm lens, or the equivalent in 35mm of, times 2, 1120mm. Wow. So there we are, that is the Olympus 100 to 400mm lens. It is a seriously good lens for photographers who need to get seriously close to their subjects, who don't want to carry around a seriously big, heavy lens. I'm Gavin Hoey, thanks for watching.